When your CEO's voice drips with venom on a Zoom call, you know you're already marked for destruction. Your role doesn't align with our corporate structure, Olivia explained during a brief Zoom call. Your department is being consolidated. My name is Ethan Ramsey, 47 years old, Senior Development Director at Blue Spark Innovations in Austin, Texas. For 15 years, I had built systems and led teams that transformed us from a struggling startup into a respected name in renewable energy solutions. Every major platform we created, every innovative process, I had my fingerprints all over them. I didn't argue or display any emotion when Olivia delivered the news. I simply asked about the transition process and logged off, professional to the end. That call haunted me, her cold smirk lingering like a threat. Later that day, I cornered Liam, our lead system architect, in the break room. "Did you know this was coming?" I demanded, voice low. He looked away, guilty. "Olivia warned us not to tell you, Ethan. Said you were resistant to change." I didn't want to believe her. My fists clenched. "They're erasing me, Liam, and you're next if you..." He nodded, pale, but said nothing more. That was 4 weeks ago. Today, I sat in my home office, reviewing the non-compete clause in my contract. The language had loopholes, big ones. The acquiring company's legal team had been sloppy, probably assuming that employees from a smaller firm wouldn't notice, or have the resources to fight back. Their mistake. My phone buzzed with another message from Liam, the 6th engineer to reach out since the acquisition announcement. "You were right about the new management. They're gutting the innovation pipeline. Are you still thinking about that project we discussed?" I set my phone down without responding. Not yet. Timing mattered. The acquisition had been celebrated across the industry. Apex Power Corporation, a Fortune 500 giant, absorbing our promising upstart company. The press release praised our complementary capabilities and shared vision. Olivia Martinez, their newly appointed CEO for our division, had promised minimal disruption. "We value the talent that built Blue Spark." Empty words. The first layoffs came within 10 days. I opened my laptop and reviewed the business plan I'd been refining for months. Not because I predicted being fired, though I'd had suspicions, but because I saw the trajectory of the company changing even before the acquisition. The executives were chasing quarterly numbers instead of innovation. When Apex made their offer, our leadership team practically tripped over themselves accepting it. Their eagerness should have been the first warning sign. That night, I found an email from Chloe, sent just hours before my termination. "Ethan, we need to discuss your team's inefficiencies," it read. Inefficiencies? My team had delivered every project ahead of schedule. I replied, "Let's meet tomorrow to clarify." No response. It was a setup, a paper trail to justify my exit. I forwarded it to my personal account, my gut screaming betrayal. In the kitchen, I poured a cup of coffee and looked at the whiteboard I'd mounted on the wall. It contained the names of Blue Spark's top clients, their pain points, and the solutions our team had built, solutions that would soon be dismantled by people who didn't understand them. Below the client names was a list of 6 engineers, the best minds at Blue Spark, people I had personally mentored, people who were now privately asking me what came next. I hadn't answered them yet because my plan wasn't quite ready, but it would be soon. I had joined Blue Spark when it was just 15 people working out of a leased office space. The founder, Arthur Coleman, had a vision for revolutionizing industrial energy monitoring systems but lacked the technical framework to execute it. I created that framework, building our first viable product, working 90-hour weeks, while my marriage slowly collapsed under the strain. "You're married to that company," my ex-wife said during our final argument. She wasn't wrong. For over a decade, I declined offers from larger competitors with better salaries and benefits. "Arthur made me feel valued. This is your company too, Ethan," he would say. We didn't have formal equity agreements, a mistake I now recognize, but there was always the promise that loyalty would be rewarded when the company succeeded. Then Arthur developed health problems 4 years ago, and his daughter Chloe took over. Chloe had her MBA from a prestigious university, but lacked her father's passion for the work. She focused on making BlueSpark attractive for acquisition rather than building something lasting. The culture shifted. Quarterly metrics replaced innovation goals. When I raised concerns in executive meetings, Chloe would nod politely and change the subject. "We'll circle back to that, Ethan," became her standard response. We never did. Last month, I confronted Chloe after a meeting. "Why are you sidelining my team?" I asked, my voice sharp. She didn't flinch. "Ethan, you're too attached to the old ways. Apex wants scalability, not your pet projects." I stepped closer. "Those pet projects are why we're worth acquiring," she smirked. "Keep pushing, and you'll be out before the ink dries on the deal." Her words burned, but I stayed silent. 7 months ago, I overheard Chloe in the conference room with 2 Apex executives discussing which teams would be redundant after the acquisition. My department was at the top of their list. That night, I began sketching what would eventually become the blueprint for Vertex Solutions, a competing firm built on everything BlueSpark was abandoning. I kept my plans quiet, continued performing excellently, and waited. If they decided to keep me, I would stay loyal. If not, I had an alternative ready. The first sign that my position was truly in jeopardy came when Olivia scheduled individual meetings with each department head except me. Then I was removed from strategic planning emails. Finally, Rachel from Human Resources requested just a quick chat about my team structure. I met Rachel in her office, sensing a trap. "Ethan, we're reviewing your department's output," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Output? We've exceeded every KPI," I shot back. She shifted uncomfortably. "Olivia's orders. She says your team's too costly." I leaned forward. "Or is it that I ask too many questions?" She didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. Still, I updated documentation, trained junior engineers, and made myself indispensable, or so I thought. 3 days before my termination, Olivia asked for access to my project archives and development roadmaps. I provided everything promptly and thoroughly, professional to the end. But I noticed her email was copied to Apex's legal team. I called Liam immediately. "They're auditing my work," I said. "They're building a case to fire me." He hesitated. "Ethan, I heard Olivia tell Chloe you're a liability. They're scared of what you know." My blood ran cold, but I stayed calm. "Keep that to yourself for now." When the Zoom call came, it lasted exactly 8 minutes. She didn't know that while she was explaining my transition package, I was already texting Liam. "Time to talk about that project. Dinner at my place, tomorrow 6:30 p.m. 6 engineers showed up. They all had the same story. Marginalized by new management, innovations shelved, concerns dismissed. They were waiting for someone to build something better. As we ate, Liam spoke up, his voice tense. "Olivia spreading rumors you mismanaged projects, Ethan. They're trying to scare us into staying quiet." I set my fork down. "Let them talk. They're dismantling BlueSpark's soul and we're going to rebuild it better." Their nods fueled my resolve. The moment that truly crystallized everything was watching Olivia's first company-wide presentation. 8 weeks after the acquisition, with 52 people already laid off, she stood on the stage that once showcased our technical achievements and unveiled Apex's integration roadmap. BlueSpark's systems will be phased out over 24 months, she announced, as we transition to Apex's enterprise architecture. The architecture she referred to was outdated by at least 4 years. Our team had developed solutions specifically because Apex's approach couldn't handle the complexity modern clients demanded. Now they were scrapping our innovations to force-fit their existing framework. In the audience, I watched the remaining engineers exchange glances. They knew what this meant. Years of work, erased. Client needs ignored. The very innovations that had made BlueSpark valuable enough to acquire would be dismantled. I didn't speak during the Q&A, didn't challenge Olivia's assertions about synergies and economies of scale. I simply observed who nodded along with her statements and who stared at their notebooks, avoiding eye contact. After the presentation, Olivia pulled me aside backstage. "Ethan, don't make this harder than it needs to be," she hissed. "Accept the severance and move on, or we'll make sure you never work in this industry again." I held her gaze. "You're destroying what we built, Olivia. I won't let that stand." Her eyes flashed with fury. You'll regret this." After the meeting, I walked to my car in the parking garage, sat there for almost an hour, engine off, thinking this wasn't just about me losing my job. This was about something I had helped build being deliberately dismantled by people who didn't understand its value. That evening, I opened my laptop and finalized the business plan I'd been developing. What had started as a contingency was now becoming real. I created a secure messaging group with the 6 engineers who had come to my house after my termination. "If you're serious about building something better, I have a proposal. Discretion essential." All 6 responded immediately. For the next 4 weeks, we met in the evenings at my house. We identified the flaws in Apex's approach, the opportunities they were missing, and the clients most likely to be dissatisfied by the changes. We mapped out exactly what made our Blue Spark systems superior and how we could evolve them further without violating intellectual property laws. I used my severance package to secure a small office space and file the necessary paperwork to establish Vertex Solutions. The company name was deliberately chosen to evoke precision and assent, rising above what Blue Spark had become. One night, Liam showed me a leaked memo from Olivia. "She's ordering the team to delete your project logs," he said, his voice shaking. "They're erasing your legacy to claim it as theirs." I gripped the table, anger surging. "Then we'll build something they can't erase. Let's double our efforts." The day after receiving my final paycheck from Apex, I received a message from Chloe Coleman. "Heard you might be starting something. We should talk before you do anything hasty." I didn't respond. There was nothing to discuss. The time for conversations had passed weeks ago, when Olivia decided my 15 years of contributions aligned with nothing in their corporate structure. Instead, I sent a different message to my team of 6. "Office space secured, legal documents ready, timeline accelerated. Are you ready to resign tomorrow?" 6 variations of yes came back within minutes. I closed my laptop and looked at the framed photo I kept on my desk. The original Blue Spark team from 15 years ago. Arthur's arm around my shoulder, both of us grinning at the first working prototype. "This one's for you, Arthur," I said quietly. "We'll build it right this time." 4 months after launching Vertex Solutions, we secured our first major client, Solaris Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing facility that had been using Blue Spark systems for years. Their operations director, Marcus, had worked closely with me on customizations for their specific energy management needs. "Apex's integration team doesn't understand our requirements," Marcus explained during our pitch meeting. "They keep trying to fit us into their standard package." We demonstrated our new platform, built on Blue Spark's core principles but with significant improvements. Marcus signed a contract the same day. That evening, Marcus called me, his tone urgent. "Apex just threatened to sue us if we proceed with you. They're saying you stole their tech." I kept my voice steady. "They're bluffing, Marcus. Our platform's clean and their non-compete's weak. Trust us." He exhaled. "I do, Ethan. But they're vicious." 3 days later, I received a certified letter from Apex Power's legal department, citing breach of non-compete agreement and theft of proprietary information. They demanded immediate cessation of operations and threatened litigation. I had anticipated this. Our attorney, Victoria Hensley, reviewed the letter and confirmed what I already knew. Their non-compete is poorly constructed. They reference energy management solutions too broadly, and they have no evidence of proprietary theft because there isn't any. Still, fighting a Fortune 500 company would drain our limited resources. I decided to approach the situation directly, requesting a meeting with Olivia. She agreed, perhaps believing I would be intimidated. We met at Apex's sleek downtown office, the Blue Spark logo now relegated to a small corner of the reception area. "You understand this can't continue," Olivia said as soon as we sat down. "Your company directly competes with technology you helped develop while employed here. The technology I developed while employed here is being phased out, according to your own integration roadmap," I replied calmly. "And my non-compete specifically prohibits using Blue Spark's proprietary systems, which we aren't. Vertex architecture was built from the ground up." Olivia's voice turned icy. "You're a fool, Ethan. Apex will crush you, your little startup, and anyone who follows you. Back off, or we'll ruin you personally. I leaned forward. You're scared, Olivia. You know your integration's failing and we're ready to pick up the pieces. Her silence was deafening. Olivia's expression tightened. Regardless, you violated the spirit of the agreement and you've poached our employees. Former employees who left voluntarily after the acquisition changed their roles, I countered. She leaned forward. Ethan, let's be practical. Apex has virtually unlimited resources for litigation. You have, 4 months of operating capital? Why put yourself through this? We could bring you back as a consultant during the transition. 3-year contract, excellent compensation. There it was. The trap. They didn't want to reinstate me. They wanted to bind me legally while they neutralized any competitive threat. I appreciate the offer, I said, standing up, but I'll take my chances with Vertex. That afternoon, Apex escalated. They contacted Solaris Industries and 2 other potential clients, warning them about potential legal issues with Vertex's technology. Marcus called me immediately. They're threatening to audit our existing systems and void our maintenance agreements if we work with you, he said, frustration evident in his voice. We can't risk that disruption right now. Within 24 hours, we lost all 3 prospects. Our runway suddenly shortened from months to weeks. The team gathered in our small office that evening, faces tense. They looked to me for direction. They're playing hardball, I acknowledged, but they've made a strategic error. I pulled up an email I'd received that morning from Arthur Coleman, Blue Spark's original founder. He'd been silently watching the acquisition unfold from retirement. Ethan, I've been following what's happening. Apex didn't just acquire Blue Spark's technology. They acquired its problems too. Call me. I think we can help each other. Liam spoke up, his voice edged with fear. Ethan, Apex is telling clients we're thieves. What if they convince everyone? I met his eyes. They're desperate because they're failing. Arthur's got proof their integration's collapsing. We stay focused and we win. I looked at my team. Apex is so focused on crushing us that they're neglecting their integration. We know the weaknesses in Blue Spark's original architecture better than anyone. Arthur says they're already experiencing system failures with key clients. Liam nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. And those clients will need solutions fast. Solutions Apex can't deliver in time. Exactly, I said. They're trying to bury us in legal threats while their technical foundation crumbles. We don't need to fight them directly. We just need to be ready when their clients start looking for alternatives. The meeting with Arthur changed everything. We met at his ranch outside Austin, away from corporate eyes. At 75, he moved more slowly than when we worked together, but his mind remained sharp. They didn't just buy Blue Spark for the technology, Arthur explained, spreading documents across his dining table. They bought it for the client contracts, specifically the Horizon Energy Group account. Horizon was our largest client, a regional utility provider serving 4 states. Their contract alone represented 35% of Blue Spark's annual revenue. What Apex doesn't understand is that Horizon's infrastructure requirements are unique, Arthur continued. Their grid management system was customized extensively. You led that project, Ethan. I nodded. 5 years of development nearly burned out my entire team getting it right. Arthur slid a confidential memo across the table, internal Apex communications forwarded by a board member who remained loyal to him. They're promising Horizon's seamless integration while planning to force them onto standard Apex architecture. The timeline is impossible. Arthur's voice grew heavy. They cheated me, Ethan. They slashed my payout, claiming integration issues. I trusted Chloe to negotiate, but she was outmaneuvered. I clenched my jaw. They're predators, Arthur. They'll pay for this. He nodded. That's why I'm with you. Let's bury them. The memo outlined an 8-month migration schedule for a system that had taken us 5 years to build. Even worse, it dismissed specific requirements as unnecessary customizations that would be standard. Horizon's CEO doesn't know yet, Arthur said quietly. But when they begin implementation and the limitations become clear, Horizon will face service disruptions, possibly regulatory issues if they can't maintain required reporting. I finished his thought. Exactly. And here's what Apex doesn't realize. The contract I negotiated with Horizon includes performance guarantees, significant penalties for systems that don't maintain 98% uptime. This was the piece I hadn't known. Apex hadn't just acquired our company, they'd inherited obligations they couldn't fulfill. No wonder they were so aggressive about shutting down Vertex. They feared we might approach Horizon before their integration failures became evident. But there was something else in Arthur's expression, a personal edge to his involvement. "Why are you helping us?" I asked directly. "Apex paid you well for the acquisition." Arthur's gaze hardened. "They did. Then they used clauses in the agreement to devalue the final payment based on integration costs." Chloe didn't understand what she was signing. "The deal that made headlines? We received about 55% of that figure and my daughter's stake was wiped out entirely." There it was. Apex had manipulated the acquisition to pay less than promised, using complex financial mechanisms that Chloe hadn't detected. They hadn't just discarded the Blue Spark team. They'd cheated the founders, too. "Does Chloe know you're talking to me?" I asked. Arthur shook his head. "Chloe took a position with Apex's corporate development team. She believes she's being groomed for executive leadership." His voice carried the weight of fatherly disappointment. "She'll learn, eventually." As I drove back to Austin, a new understanding crystallized. This wasn't just about my termination or Apex's poor business decisions. This was about systematic corporate predation, identifying smaller companies with valuable client relationships, acquiring them under false pretenses, extracting what they wanted, and discarding the rest. The engineers they fired calculated losses, the promises they broke, negotiating tactics, the technologies they dismantled, inconvenient complications. At home, I called Victoria, our attorney. "Apex is slandering us to clients," I said. "Can we countersue?" She was blunt. "Not yet. We need evidence of damages. But I've got a contact digging into Apex's internal memos. If they're hiding failures, we'll find it." I pulled into my driveway and sat in silence for several minutes, processing the implications. Then I called Liam. "Contact the team. Meeting at the office tomorrow, 6 a.m. We need to accelerate development of our Horizon-compatible system, and I need you to pull every piece of documentation we have on their grid architecture." "Are we going after Horizon?" Liam asked, his voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Not yet," I replied. "But we're going to be ready when they start looking for help, and they will, sooner than Apex expects." We had 10 weeks to prepare for Horizon's inevitable crisis. The team worked around the clock, developing a platform that could seamlessly interface with Horizon's existing infrastructure while providing the improvements they would soon desperately need. I maintained a careful distance from Horizon executives, knowing Apex was likely monitoring any contacts. Instead, I focused on building our capacity and evidence base. We documented every public failure in Apex's integration process, creating a comprehensive analysis of where their approach was fundamentally flawed. Meanwhile, Arthur activated his industry network. Without directly referencing our strategy, he began raising questions at energy sector conferences about the technical challenges of forced system migrations. The conversation was happening exactly where we needed it, in the professional circles where Horizon's technical leaders participated. The first major crack appeared 6 weeks into our preparation. Apex initiated the first phase of Horizon's system migration and immediately encountered the issues we had anticipated. 4 substations experienced monitoring failures, creating gaps in regulatory compliance data. Horizon's Chief Technology Officer, Isabel Carter, publicly described the issues as expected transition challenges, but privately, according to Arthur's contacts, she was furious. Isabel texted me that night, breaking protocol. "Ethan, is Apex lying about your platform?" I replied carefully, "They're deflecting. Our tech's clean and we can prove it." She didn't respond, but I knew we'd planted a seed. 2 weeks later, when the second phase caused a 5-hour reporting blackout across an entire service region, the situation escalated. Horizon issued a formal notice of deficiency to Apex, triggering the performance guarantee clauses. Apex's response was telling. They assigned blame to inherited architectural limitations from BlueSpark. They were setting up a narrative to void the performance guarantees by claiming the original system was defective. That was the opening we needed. I drafted a detailed technical analysis demonstrating how the failures stemmed not from BlueSpark's original architecture, but from Apex's incompatible integration approach. Arthur delivered this document personally to Isabel Carter. 4 days later, I received a text message from an unknown number. "Coffee tomorrow, 3 p.m., Riverfront Brew." When I arrived at the cafe, Isabel was already seated in a corner booth. She got straight to the point. "Your analysis matches our internal findings," she said quietly. "Apex is attempting to force us into their system to avoid maintaining our customizations. The regulatory risks are unacceptable." "You have options?" I replied carefully. "Do I? Our contract with Apex is binding. Breaking it would trigger penalties that would exceed our annual technology budget, unless Apex is in material breach through performance failures," I suggested, "which your legal team is likely exploring right now." Isabel's slight smile confirmed my assumption. "We would still need an immediate alternative. Regulatory reporting can't wait for a new vendor selection process." I slid a flash drive across the table. "This contains a technical overview of Vertex's platform. It was built specifically to address the issues you're experiencing. We can deploy within 4 weeks with zero regulatory interruption." She pocketed the drive without examining it. "Apex claims you violated non-compete agreements." "They've made that claim, yes, but their legal position has significant weaknesses, which our counsel has documented." I provided a second flash drive. "This contains our attorney's analysis. Your legal team will find it illuminating." Isabel nodded once. "I'll be in touch." 3 days later, Apex announced an emergency stabilization of Horizon systems, effectively admitting their integration approach had failed. Their stock dropped 10% by market close. That evening, I received an official request for proposal from Horizon Energy Group, bypassing their normal procurement process under emergency provisions. I gathered our team. "This is it. Horizon needs a solution immediately, and we've built exactly what they require. Everything we've worked for comes down to this proposal." Liam looked around the room at our small but determined team. "Should we be concerned about Apex's response when they realize what's happening?" I shook my head. "They've created their own crisis. Now they'll have to watch us solve it." The Horizon board meeting was scheduled for 9:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. By 9:45, my phone rang. "Unanimous approval," Isabel said without preamble. "Expedited contract execution. We need implementation to begin Monday." Within the hour, our attorney confirmed the contract was clean, no hidden clauses or traps. Horizon had agreed to our full implementation fee plus a 4-year maintenance agreement. The numbers were substantial enough to secure Vertex's future for years. More importantly, the contract included a specific indemnification against Apex's potential legal claims. Horizon's attorneys had reviewed our position and confirmed what we already knew. Apex's non-compete claims couldn't stand up to serious scrutiny. That night, Olivia called me, her voice shaking with rage. "You think you've won, Ethan? We'll bankrupt you in court before you plug in a single server." I stayed calm. "You're fighting a losing battle, Olivia. Horizon's done with you." She hung up, but her desperation was clear. The news hit the industry by mid-afternoon. Apex stock dropped another 15%. Their legal team immediately filed for an emergency injunction to block our contract. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning, the same day our implementation was set to begin. When we arrived at the courthouse, Apex had 5 attorneys present, led by their chief counsel. Olivia sat behind them, her expression tight with controlled anger. The judge reviewed the filings efficiently, then looked directly at Apex's team. "Your non-compete agreements appear to prohibit using proprietary BlueSpark systems, but evidence suggests Vertex developed independent architecture. Furthermore, Horizon's filing demonstrates urgent public interest in maintaining utility service reliability." She denied the injunction without further deliberation. As we exited the courtroom, Olivia intercepted me in the hallway. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "Apex doesn't lose." I stepped closer, voice low. "You lost the moment you underestimated us, Olivia. Vertex is just the beginning." Her face paled, but she turned away without another word. I met her gaze steadily. This was never about winning or losing. It was about building something that actually works. I walked past her to where my team waited. Together, we left to begin the implementation that would secure both Horizon Systems and Vertex's future. The quiet victory felt complete. 20 months after the Horizon contract, Vertex Solutions had grown to 32 employees. We occupied the entire floor of a building in downtown Austin with views of the river that had witnessed both my professional collapse and resurrection. The Horizon implementation had been flawless, completed ahead of schedule with zero service interruptions. Word spread through the industry, 5 more major clients migrated to our platform within a year. Apex eventually abandoned their legal pursuit, focusing instead on containing the damage to their energy division. Olivia Martinez was reassigned to a subsidiary in another state. Chloe Coleman departed for a startup incubator, wiser for the experience. Arthur occasionally stopped by our offices, pride evident as he watched a vision reborn. He never officially joined Vertex, but his guidance remained invaluable. On the 2nd anniversary of my termination, I received an unexpected email from my former boss at BlueSpark, the person who had hired me 15 years earlier. "You built something better than we ever could have," he wrote. "Several of us saw it coming, but couldn't prevent the acquisition. Some victories take time." I closed my laptop and walked to the conference room where our team was celebrating the completion of a new module. These were no longer just colleagues. They were partners who had taken the same risk I had, believing that competence and integrity would eventually outperform corporate politics. Later that evening, I stood alone on my deck at home, watching the sunset paint the skyline. The bitter taste of betrayal had faded, replaced by something unexpected: gratitude. Without Apex's arrogance, without Olivia's dismissal, Vertex might never have existed. I hadn't just reclaimed my career. I'd built something more aligned with my values than BlueSpark could have become under Apex's direction. Sometimes getting pushed out of the wrong place is exactly what you need to find the right one.